Hi everyone, welcome to my beautiful unschool life. My name is Erin. Today I'm going to do a talkie video. This one's specifically for my ADHD and anxiety peeps. If you're here for the beautiful African lifestyle, there's a video like that coming up in a few days. But for now I want to talk about some of the more serious issues. So something happened this past weekend that I wasn't going to talk about on my channel just because I was so absorbed in it that I didn't film anything. And also I wanted to keep it secret from my mom because she worries too much. Sorry, Mom. But it occurred to me afterwards that there were a lot of things that I could talk about in relation to ADHD coping skills and anxiety coping skills that I should really share my experience. So here goes. On Friday of last week, my 7-year-old Bethany, who has ADHD and anxiety, fell ill suddenly. On Saturday morning, we took her to the hospital and she tested positive for malaria. And then on Sunday afternoon, my other daughter, my 4-year-old Abigail, also fell sick. So she was brought to the hospital and she also tested positive for malaria. We suspect that they were probably bitten by the same mosquito while sleeping inside the mosquito net because, you know, that's how it goes. I gave them the mosquito net and I slept without it, but they're the ones that got malaria. They're both okay now. They're fully recovered. There's not going to be any long-term consequences. But nursing a child who has ADHD and anxiety through illness was a whole heck of a ball game. And I thought I should talk about it. Because both girls were sick with the same thing, I got a really good perspective on how they both process the same experience differently. Bethany, with ADHD, she hyper-fixates on things. In this case, she hyper-fixated on pain and all anticipated pain. It was all she could think about, was her fear of the pain, was her fear of something hurting, was her fear of something being uncomfortable or distasteful. And she also lacks emotional control, which is a very normal ADHD thing. The same parts of the brain that control your impulses also control your emotions. So she really struggles with emotion control. So when something makes her scared, she can't hide it. Her reaction is way up here, you know? So when it was time to get a needle, you know, Abby clearly didn't want to, but she took the needle. Whereas when Bethany doesn't want a needle, she turns into a screaming, clawing, panicking, crazy person. She, at one point, when they needed to, so the first thing they needed to do is draw blood to do the test to see if they had malaria. When they tried to do that, Bethany hit the nurse and stabbed herself in the hand with the needle. Now, of course, a lot of the times for adults, if a kid won't sit still for a needle, the instinct is to restrain them, you know, hold them really tight and force them to have the needle. And I understand that impulse because that's exactly what I did when she needed her yellow fever vaccine before we came to Africa. I held her really tight. I wrapped my legs around her legs and my arms around her arms, and she got the needle. But I really hated myself for doing that because it goes against everything I've ever said to her about bodily autonomy and about consent. And that's not something I want to do. But not only that, is that when I constrain her, I put everyone in danger, because if she manages to get out of my hold, she could really hurt herself, or she could really hurt the nurse, or she could really hurt me. So this time I made a real effort to not constrain her, to do everything with her consent, which requires extraordinary amounts of negotiation. But the benefits of doing it this way are innumerable. If I help her prepare for it, if I let her be in control, then she learns so much more. She learns how to get on top of her anxiety. She learns how to do things that scare the crap out of her. She learns how strong she is, and she learns how capable she is. She learns that she can trust me. And of course, her bodily autonomy and the importance of consent are reinforced for her. So the question is, how do you negotiate a child with this level of anxiety? How do you convince them to let someone stick a needle in them? How do you convince them to take a pill when they're terrified of it? You sort of have to understand the steps involved in what you want them to do and the limitations or the uniquenesses of an ADHD mind. So an ADHD mind struggles with executive functioning. The three aspects of executive functioning are working memory, which is when you have a job you need to do, figuring out and remembering the various steps of that job. Inhibitory control, which is like controlling your emotions and controlling your impulses. And cognitive flexibility, which is being able to change your perspective, being able to see things from a different angle. So those three things put together make it really difficult for her to go through an experience like what she just went through. She can't control her emotions. She can't control her impulses. She fixates on the negative scenario that's playing in her head, and she's not able to see it from a different perspective. And she can't envision the steps required to see success in this situation. So I need to help her with all of those things. I need to coach her in developing these skills because she can't do it herself. So the way that I did that was to remind her how to control her emotions, remind her to breathe deeply, remind her to calm down, which was very hard for her to do. She really had a hard time breathing deeply. I had to try and help her visualize the air going down, and it was really difficult. I had to help her widen her perspective by seeing the situation. So all she can see is the negativity of having a needle and the pain of having a needle. We need to bring her perspective around and say, yeah, the needle is painful, but malaria is a lot more painful. You know, you've been in so much pain for the last 2 days. It will get worse if you don't get the needle. To try and change her perspective, to see the problem from a different angle, rather than her tunnel vision, her hyper-fixating on the pain, the pain, the pain. And then helping her come up with a plan to be successful in the situation. So, for instance, when she needed to take pills, you know, she needs to swallow a pill, but all she can think about is how hard it is to swallow a pill. And so she gets tenser and tenser and tenser and tenser. So then when she tries to swallow the pill, she can't do it properly, and she chokes on it, and she gags, and then she vomits. And then she says, the pill made me vomit, but it's not really the pill making her vomit. It's her anxiety over swallowing the pill that makes her vomit. So we need to help her see the steps of the plan and help her envision those steps being successful. And we rehearse those steps so that when it comes time for her to do it, she knows how the plan's going to play out, and she has already envisioned it being successful. So we talk about, where on your tongue are you going to put the pill? How are you going to hold your head so that the pill doesn't fall out again? How are you going to drink the water so that the pill washes down your throat? And we went over it again and again and again and again and again. And then we practiced swallowing little bits of food so that she could build up her confidence and believe that she was able to swallow the pill. And so in the end, when she did swallow the pill, she was so proud of herself because she realized that she was able to do it. She was strong. She was able to tackle this problem that she was so scared of, but she did it anyways. And so, yeah, it might be easier to hold her down and force her to take it. it would be a lot easier to hold her down and force her to take it than negotiating for 45 minutes every single time she needed to take a pill. But in the end, she learned things about her strength, about her abilities, and she also learned how you put a plan together and how you can practice a plan. And so hopefully, if we do this again and again and again throughout her life, by the time she gets to adulthood, she will be able to compensate for her poor executive functioning, right? That's the objective, is to give them these skills. Start practicing these skills now so that when she's 18, she won't still need her mom to help her with everything. And then when it comes to the issue of cognitive flexibility, there's one last thing. When it came to the pills, she kept thinking she was going to fail at the pill swallowing. She's going to make a mistake. She's not going to be able to swallow the pill. Ultimately, as we talked about it, she came to the realization that the only real failure would be not taking the pill. Trying to take the pill and failing and trying again and failing, that would be success because she's trying. If she didn't even try at all, that would be the real failure, because then the malaria would come back. And once she realized that, that really helped her motivate herself to go through the steps that we had been practicing and take the pill. Anyways, we're heading home to Canada in 2 weeks. In the meantime, we are all taking anti-malarials so that we will not get sick again. Fingers crossed that we don't get COVID at the airport. Wish us luck. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you later.